briefly walk us through your media journey, Andrew?
Well, I became a journalist when I was in primary one in 1978, and Idi Amin in November of that year attacked Tanzania, and then Tanzania responded by invading Uganda. So my father would sit in the evenings with his contemporaries on radio, listening to BBC, Deutsche Welle, Voice of America, Radio South Africa, and they would listen to the news. After listening to the news, they would discuss the implications of the news. So it was two parts. One was just the straight news reporting. The other was their own analysis. So the next day, I would go to my classroom, assemble all my classmates when the teacher is not in the class, and I would discuss with them. I would read for them the news as I had it on radio, and then I would give them analysis or opinions regurgitating what my father and his contemporaries would be saying. So that was my first newspaper, television, and radio station. There was no institution called a TV or a radio station or a newspaper. It was journalism by word of mouth. So my first foray into journalism, I was 6 years in primary one in November 1978.
Wow, what a journey.
When I went secondary school at Nyakasura School in 1986, when I was in S2, I started a newspaper with a friend called Johnson Okello. We started a newspaper called the City Press. That newspaper was so revolutionary, we even led a revolution, dismissed the deputy headmaster. I personally took charge of the administration of the school for about 10 days until they brought in the police and the army. They closed the school, kicked me out, and threw me in jail. When I went to Mbarara High, I tried to begin a newspaper. It was blocked. I led a revolution. We dismissed the headmaster, sent him home. I was also dismissed and arrested again. So my first time in jail, I was 16. My second time in jail, I was 19. Then finally, no, I was 18 actually. My second time in jail, I was arrested when I was 18, a young man of 18 years. Then finally, I went to Soka College Muiri. When I was at Muiri, I started a newspaper called The New Muirian, which I'm told is still moving. And then when I left Muiri, I went to Makerere. I started working with the Monitor. I have been a journalist since I was 6.
Wow, what a journey, Andrew. And thank you so much for your submissions. Andrew, I just want to ask you about in the information age today, there is a new phenomenon of fake news and less fact-checking before dissemination of information. My question to you is, does the media still stick to the core values of ethical reporting?
Well, I should tell you that the media is not homogeneous in the sense that not all media organizations are the same institution. We have Monitor, we have New Vision, we have Red Pepper, we have TV. Each of these media houses has its own what I would call core values, and those values shape how they cover particular stories. If you look at the Independent, and if you read the Independent, we have our newspaper online, you will see that we really follow the values of journalism, which is truth and accuracy. Don't just be truthful, but also be accurate. 2, fairness and balance. Fairness means that you should not accuse anybody of anything wrong without listening to them. And balance means that if I accuse you of doing something wrong, I should give you equitable space to defend yourself, or airtime. So I should not write 10 pages criticizing you and give you only 1 sentence to defend yourself. That's balance. Then finally, we say we must provide context. In journalism, always provide context. Even when the facts staring in your eyes are so glaring, it's always important to remember that things happen out of context. And the final thing, of course, is impartiality. It's very important in journalism to make every effort to be impartial. That does not mean you should be passive. If people are being killed, that you should be impartial between genociders and like doing the Rwanda genocide, that because you're a journalist, you will balance between genocidaries and those really trying to defend human life. So the different media institutions in Uganda have different levels of the defense of these values, and I believe, and I'm being real objective, that the Independent is the leading newspaper or media house in Uganda in holding the highest values of journalism that you can find. And I say this without any bias whatsoever. What is the lesson we can learn from Western media? Western media essentially is a platform for the promotion of the interests and values, quote unquote, of their home governments. If you listen to the Americans talk to you, whether they are criticizing Hitler or anybody, do you know that America was built on two platforms, the United States of America, which is a great democracy? The enslavement of black people and the genocide of Native Americans. The genocide against Native Americans and the enslavement of black people took place in a country with a constitution that guarantees civil liberties, with a constitution that says all men are created equal, right? In a country which had a free press, an independent judiciary, an independent parliament, checks and balances on the abuse of power, all elements of democracy existed in America while America conducted the genocide against Native Americans. If you read American history, have you ever read a book about America which tells you that America was built by genociding Native American people? The native people of that land were killed by immigrants who came from Europe and exterminated all of them. The few that remain live in native reserves. So I think what as Africans we can learn is that we are too obsessed with our weaknesses and so blind to our strengths. The greatness of America and Europe is the ability to always focus on what is good about them and harness that rather than always quarrel over what their weaknesses are. That's the opposite in Africa. Listen to any debate. We are talking about how bad we are, how our systems are failing. We don't look at our strengths. And if, by the way, if I had told you as an individual, I think that you get better results by leveraging your strengths, not by fixing your weaknesses. Just, I give you an example. Tiger Woods was a student of nuclear physics at Stanford University. He said, where would I benefit the most? By concentrating on golf or trying to be a nuclear physicist? Even if he put in the greatest effort, he would never be the best nuclear physicist in the world. But he was already a very good golfer. He said, let me harness my best talent. Instead of trying to fix my weakness in nuclear physics, let me harness my talent in golf playing, because that's where I'm best. And he became the best golf player of all time. So as Africans, we need to identify what are the good things about us, our societies, our governments, our leaders, our neighbors, our churches, our friends. What are those good things? How can we leverage those for our advancement? Because every day I listen to debate in Uganda, we are concerned with our weaknesses. We never deal with our strengths. And we can never succeed by fixing our weaknesses. We can only succeed by leveraging our strengths. I think that I am not comfortable with the concept of good governance. Good governance to who? In whose eyes? Because what is good for Britain may not be good for Uganda. I personally would want to see African schools from primary through secondary up to university teach a subject of governance in Africa. And for example, how do you govern a society whose per capita income is $1,000? Per capita revenue is $150. Per capita spending is $250 or $300. How do you manage a society like that, where 70% of the population are ordinary peasants living off the land, where only 40% of the adult population is literate? The strategies you use to govern, the governance strategies you employ to manage a society of that level are different from where you manage a society with a per capita income of $60,000 and per capita spending of $20,000. The two societies cannot be governed alike. So when we talk of good governance, often we are referring here to the governance model of Belgium, of Norway or Denmark, how to turn Uganda into Denmark. But Uganda cannot be Denmark, first because our level of development, our level of education, our level of urbanization, our level of income are so different. But also historically, our cultures are different. I think we need to begin discussing governance in the African context. How well can we govern our societies? What are the strategies you use to govern a society with a per capita income of 800? And what are the governance strategies you employ in managing a society with a per capita income of 50,000? So I think that when we talk of good governance, we are really talking about how Uganda can be Belgium. But Uganda is not Belgium and cannot be Belgium. I personally think that we need to begin our political education from primary through secondary up to university, especially the teaching of political economy. That's the best way we can do it. And also we can have programs, we can take youth to Chankwanza and other areas where they can always engage in the discussion of the future of Africa.